So today is our first class. Python programming is our objective. We are in the next 1 month we are going to learn Python in best and efficient way. So before I get into start explaining you about Python, I will teach you some of the basic coding fundamentals. These are similar across all programming language. Since we are learning Python, so I will be talking more related to Python. What are the basic coding fundamentals you are going to follow? Okay, so let's get started. So at the very beginning, right, we need to know these five coding concepts. Okay, what are these and how? Because the moment you get into industry, the moment you start working on any programming language, you will get to hear a lot of these words or terminologies: the variables, data structures, control structures, syntax, and tools. Okay, so we will go more in detail about each of this. Now first let's talk about the variables. What does the variable means in a programming world? So so as the foundation of computer programming language, variable act as a containers that hold information. So this is a completely a textbook definition, right? So it is the foundation of computer programming language. Variable act as a containers that hold information. So container and hold, these are the two items which defines the variable. For example, if I give an example and explain you, here if you see name equal to, I have written data neurons inside the quotes, right? So name will act as a variable here, okay? And name is a variable where data neurons is the information which he is holding, okay? Similarly, place is a variable. Bangalore is the information the variable place is holding. Similarly, the number is the variable, and the information whatever I have is been hold like this information is stored or contained under this particular variable. And area, and again same similar. So these are the few examples about variables. So variables are nothing but you're going to define a new name which holds some information, okay? And there are some naming standards that down the line we are going to learn. See, all the names starts with lowercase. It's a best practice you start all your variable name with a lowercase. And if your variable name is little bit large or bigger, then we can add underscore and have some other name placed after it. So during our programming classes, we are going to define more variables and work with those. This is very most of the times we will be working on the defining variables, storing the data into a variable. Okay, so these kind of variable definitions we are going to talk more in detail. But before I get started with the programming, I just wanted to give you the coding fundamentals, like what does this variables means. The moment I say define a variable, then I'm expecting something like this. You have to define a variable and you have to store some information inside it, okay? And let's talk about the next one. Here we have the next coding fundamental is data structures, okay? So data structures, it will allow the programmers to stream the data collections. So just to simplify further, in the previous slide we have declared name. These are variables. Name equals to data neurons, place equals to Bangalore, number and area. So all these four different type of information is stored in these four different variable names. If you want to collate them into one single data structure, right, then this is how we are going to do in programming language. I have taken an example of list here. There are multiple data structures down the line we are going to learn. There are multiple data structures which can hold information. The one data structures which I have listed is list here. If you see the square brackets, wherever you see the square bracket, these are called as list in Python terminology, okay? So here we have data neurons, comma Bangalore, comma the number, comma Jayanagar, like the information. So I have stored all this information in one structure that is called list, right? So similarly, we are going to talk about dictionary, we are going to talk about strings, we are going to talk about tuples. So there are different data structures available in different programming language, and they are referred with the different names. So for in Python, the most widely used data structures are like list, tuple, dictionary, and strings. So these all four we will be discussing more in detail in our upcoming classes. So whenever I say data structures, so this is what has to come in your mind, that okay, it is nothing but it allowed programmers to streamline the data or store the data into one data structure. Okay. Now moving to the next fundamental, I have control structures. Okay. Control structures, it will analyze a variable and select a direction in which to go. Okay. For example, if I give you a real world example, for example, there are 30 students in a classroom, and out of those 30 students, and then we have to identify which student has successfully passed the exam and which is not. So teachers have given us the criteria that the student who scores above 35 is passed, the student who has scored below 35 is he got failed. So in such scenario, what we are doing is we are giving him a condition to check if that particular student has scored more than 35, then he will be flagged as a passed, and then if he scored less than 35, then we are marking him as a failed. Here example, for example, you know about this now. This is the institute is a variable where have information called data neurons. Okay. And if institute is equal to data neurons, then we are going to get the direction in which direction our code will proceed. So these are called control structures. We are telling the programming to, we are controlling the process of flow. For example, if this condition occurs, you have to perform this particular action. If this condition occurs, you have to execute this piece of the code. In this case, if the above condition is satisfied, then he will come and execute this piece of code. So we will be talking more in detail about all these conditions. What are the different types of conditions we have? We have if, else, many more. Okay. And what does this 2 : means? What does this 2 equal sign means? What does this print statement does? So all these things, keywords will be, we are going to discuss in detail. But as a good practice, remember that control structures are nothing but where we are going to take some decisions based on certain conditions. Okay. And the next thing is what we have is the syntax. Okay. So just like in English language, we basically have some, grammars and syntax, the way we write in any language you talk about. You take English, Hindi, Telugu, or whatever. So we have some syntax, we have some dictionary where they have defined some set of rules that this particular word means this is what it defines. Similarly, in computer programming, we also have a syntax or set of rules we can call. Okay. So you may ask like why I am writing this particular piece of, why we have to define institute and then put equal sign and then put data neurons, right? So this is the syntax how we are going to define a variable. We have to follow that. The one most important thing is whenever you want to learn any new programming language, you need to be good with the syntax about how you're going to define a variable and how you're going to write some control structures and all that. So again, similar example I have taken here. The way I define the variable is what this is how the Python is designed. It takes variable, the variable name will be on the left hand side, and the data which is going to store will be on the right hand side. So similarly, if I have to use some control structures, I have to start with a name keyword called if, and then I have to put a condition and then indentation, and then what activity I want to perform, that will be placed under this. So the way I write this program is I am completely following the Python syntax. So Down the line, slowly you will learn how to remember the syntax, and most of the times, the place where you are writing this code, that that particular IDE or tool will help you to remember the syntax. Okay. And the fifth basic fundamentals about the coding is tools. For example, a tool in computer language, computer programming is a piece of software that helps programmers to write code much faster. For example, I have a code, I know how you have learned everything, but you want to run this code, where you are going to run it. So we have different platforms available. We have Python idle, we have Colab, we have Databricks, we have PyCharm. Okay, imagine you got a job and that company is working on PyCharm. Okay, so you need to be aware of such tools. There is you need not to go and full-fledged learn about this tool. It is everywhere, it is similar. You just need to know the Python syntax to run it, to run your code into different tools. Okay, so as a first step, we are going to talk about what are these different tools, how we are going to run our programs here, and how we are going to subscribe for all these different tools. Okay.